Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told out of Voice Radio. So today, we're going to actually have a look at Sigilyph GX. Now, we looked at Sigilyph GX, it came around and lost thunder, it's been out for a little while. But I got a tweet from a lovely person recently, and they said, is this going to be a good secret tech for Worlds? And I went, I don't actually know. And the more I think about it, the more I think, well, hang on a second. Maybe it actually is. Let's have a look, shall we? So Sigilyph GX then, there's a couple of things we really like about it. Chief among them is the ability. The ability Mirror Counter reads. If this Pokemon is your active Pokemon and is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon GX or Pokemon EX, even if it's knocked out, put damage counters on the attacking Pokemon equal to the damage done to this Pokemon. Well, that could be pretty gosh darn useful, couldn't it? And of course, it's as good a time as any to mention that Spell Tag is a thing. Spell Tag can be attached to a psychic Pokemon like Sigilyph, and when the psychic Pokemon it's attached to is knocked out, you can put 4 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way that you like. And I say that because, as we're going to see in a minute, there are some of the calculations here where you're going to end up just a little bit short with Sigilyph's ability. So, okay, but this has been a good ability since Sigilyph was released, and that was a while ago now. So why are we all of a sudden thinking it's good in the Worlds format? Well, 2 things are happening at the World Championships. Firstly, Unified Minds will be legal for the first time ever. And secondly, we are going to have a rotation, which means we're losing a whole bunch of cards. And chief among them, and I did do a video about this, I'll link it in the description, we're losing all our gusting effects. We're losing Guzma. We're losing Pokemon Catcher. We're losing Counter Catcher. We're losing Lycanroc. We're even losing Escape Rope. And yeah, sure, some people are going to play Custom Catcher. Custom Catcher is going to be played at the World Championships. But even where people are playing it, you've got to play 2 of them at the same time. That's difficult to pull off. So the point is, generally speaking, if you left a Sigilyph in the active, your opponent was going to play a Guzma. Or an Escape Rope, or something along those lines. So many of them were played, and when you were desperate to find them, we had stuff like Tapu Lele. The fact that we've got Mirror Counter isn't new and exciting, but the fact that the gusting options are significantly worse, that, ladies and gentlemen, is absolutely new and exciting. It is far, far more likely that your opponent is going to have to hit into Sigilyph. Now, sure, we're getting Great Catcher, but we're getting Great Catcher in Cosmic Eclipse. That's our November set. It ain't going to be legal for World. Maybe when Great Catcher comes out, Sigilyph's ability becomes more irrelevant again, or less relevant, I suppose. But that's not Worlds. Now, while we're talking about this, I do have to mention Power Plant. Power Plant does see a fair amount of play, and Power Plant is a stadium card that turns off abilities of EX and GX Pokemon. And Sigilyph's ability is in your opponent's control. That is to say, it's relevant on their turn. Which means that if you put Sigilyph down, you got to hope they don't have a Power Plant. I think it's less likely they're going to have a Power Plant than they would have had a Guzma or something else pre-Worlds. But while I'm talking about this being a good ability, and I still believe it is, we do need to remember Power Plant is a thing. Now, we don't know exactly what the best decks are going to be at Worlds. I'm going to be doing my decks that can win Worlds video fairly shortly. But there are a couple of decks that we can rely on being good at Worlds. So let's take something like Blacephalon. Blacephalon's a good example. You play it with Naganadel, and then you lost zone as many fire energy from your board as you like. You do 50 damage for each fire energy that you lost zoned. Cool. Thing is, in order to KO Sigilyph, you've got to lost zone 4 energy to do 200 damage, which means Blacephalon takes 200 damage and is KO'd. Everyone takes 2 prizes. The thing is, Blacephalon has to have 2 energy attached to it, and lost zone 4 energy from the field, though if they're clever, it will include the 2 attached to Blacephalon, whereas Sigilyph needs to be in the active. That's a lot less. Now, we're expecting Pikachu and Zekrom to be good, and at this stage, I need to remind you about the phenomenal lightning weakness. Because you see, you're weak to lightning. Which means that generally Pikachu and Zekrom would do 150 damage, but they are in fact now doing 300 damage. Which means you're doing 300 damage. Which means you're getting a one-hit KO on them. If you leave a Sigilyph in the active, your opponent cannot use full blitz. They just can't. That's a lie. They can use full blitz. And they will take 2 prizes. But they will gain free energy while losing free energy. They will gain 2 prizes while you gain 3 prizes. They lose that exchange, ladies and gentlemen. They put free energy onto a Pikachu and Zekrom. To be honest, they're probably using Tapu Koko, Prism Star, and Thunder Mountain. But still, and you do nothing. And you still end up better off than they were. We're expecting Reshiram and Charizard to remain quite good post-rotation. Now, to be fair, they can sit there and outrage for a little while. They could outrage to do 30, and then they'll take 30 back. So the next turn, they outrage for 60, and they take 60 back. And then the next turn, they outrage for 120, and it will work eventually, yeah? But that's going to slow the game right down, and you're still going to be doing a whole bunch of damage to them. But otherwise, Reshiram and Charizard is hitting 230, and then you're doing 230 back. Although, like I've said, Spell Tag, you are going to need it to get the KO here. We're also expecting Garchomp and Giratina to be good post-rotation, or, well, will be post-rotation at Worlds. And Garchomp and Giratina, they can either do 160 if you don't have any damage on, it won't KO you. Or they can do 240, and then you'll do 240 back. Incidentally, Spell Tag here is going to be needed to get the KO on Garchomp and Giratina, just like it was with Reshiram and Charizard. Now, Garchomp and Giratina can just use linear attack to hit 40 to a bench Pokemon, in the same way that Reshiram and Charizard can just outrage. But the point is that they're then just doing 40 to get benched. They're slowing the game right down. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't going to work against non-GXs. Something like Zapdos can hit you for 80. Remember, it doesn't hit weakness. And there's going to be Pokemon out there like Arcanine that can do a bunch of damage without taking any back. You do have resistance to non-GX Boswell, which is pretty good. But the point is that a lot of the best decks are not going to be able to get around this ability particularly easily. They're going to gust around it. And our gusting options are significantly worse. And then we've got a GX attack here that's pretty gosh darn good as well. It does 60 damage for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. Now, you are hitting weakness against Mewtwo and Mew, which we're expecting to be pretty good at Worlds. But even if you're not hitting for weakness, Pikachu and Zekrom with free energy 180, but if they use their GX attack, they're going to have 6 energy on, that's 360, you get a KO. Reshiram and Charizard, they're generally going to have 4 energy on there, which is 240. If you've done free damage anywhere or have got a spell tag or something, there's the KO. But again, if they use their GX attack, they go down. To put it simply, any tag team Pokemon that's using their GX attack are going to have to put enough energy on that you can go and get a one-hit KO. Now, to be fair, this is going to be played in Malamar decks, more on that in a moment, and Malamar decks generally play Gengar and Mimikyu, which does have a really good GX attack you may wish to use instead. And you've always got Ultra Necrozma's GX attack, nowhere near as widely used, but it can be useful. But the point is, there are other GX attacks, but this is right up there with them, and the energy cost shouldn't worry you because you're playing it in a Malamar deck. And that's the point on which we really need to end here. I'm making an argument that Sigilyph GX is a good Pokemon that you should take a look at. I am not making an argument that you should play a quad Sigilyph deck at Worlds, because there are answers to it. My argument very simply is, it is a good Pokemon, and it is a Pokemon that should go into a Malamar deck, or maybe some other decks, that you can use to give yourself an advantage. It's not supposed to be one that's there to win the game in and of itself, but it is supposed to be one that you chuck up in the active and give your opponent a choice. And maybe you do end up in a game state where you can just pop a couple Sigilyph down and your opponent's got no answer and you end up winning. But more likely, you're going to chuck it up and your opponent is either going to have to give you a couple free prizes, or they're going to have to stop for a turn. And them stopping for a turn might mean you get an extra Malamar out. Or it might give you an extra turn to draw into that Cynthia when you're having a really slow start to the game. I think with the gusting options going away, the fact that non-GX decks are really struggling against GX decks at the moment, and the fact that this fits so neatly into Malamar decks, means that we really do need to be taking another look at Sigilyph. I'm not saying definitely play it at Worlds. What I am saying is you should really be thinking about and testing with this in advance of Worlds. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. I think you should be taking another look at Sigilyph, but I would very much like to know what you're thinking, so please do let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where we talk about a whole bunch of games that don't even have any Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.